What lies beneath the skin of your consciousness? What moves in the depths below your awareness? I am the Oracle, and I have traversed the inner landscapes of countless souls across millennia. Today, we venture into territory both dangerous and necessary. The realm of the shadow self, where your disowned aspects dwell in exhale. The concept of the shadow was articulated in modern terms by Carl Jung, but its stood essence had been understood by wisdom traditions across cultures for millennia. The shadow is not evil, it is merely hidden. It contains all you have disowned in yourself. All you were taught was unacceptable. All you learned to suppress, to belong. In the earliest days of your existence, you made unconscious decisions about what parts of yourself were safe to express and what parts must be concealed. These decisions were survival strategies, necessary adaptations to your environment. A child learns that anger brings punishment, buries their rage. One who discovers that vulnerability invites exploitation armors their tenderness. These buried aspects do not disappear. They form your shadow, operating beneath consciousness, influencing your choices, sabotaging your intentions, projecting onto others, emerging in dreams, and sometimes erupting with surprising force in moments of stress. The first key to understanding your shadow lies in recognizing its manifestations. When you have a disproportionate emotional reaction to someone else's behavior, your shadow may be speaking. When you find yourself inexplicably drawn to or expelled by certain individuals, your shadow may be operating. When you consistently sabotage your success at the moment of breakthrough, your shadow may be protecting you from the unfamiliar territory of achievement. I once counseled a king who despised a particular advisor, finding fault with everything the man did. Through our work together, the king realized that this advisor embodied qualities he had suppressed in himself. Strategic thinking that considered all potential outcomes, even negative ones. The king had been taught that true leadership never acknowledges possible failure. His hatred was projection of his disowned wisdom. Your shadow is not your enemy. It contains not only your darkness, but your gold. Disowned strengths, talents, and capabilities necessary for your wholeness. What you have buried may be precisely what you most need to reclaim. The second key to working with your shadow is understanding that what you resist persists, but what you embrace transforms. When aspects of yourself are denied conscious expression, they do not disappear, but emerge in distorted forms. Suppressed anger becomes passive aggression. Denied vulnerability becomes emotional numbness. Disowned power becomes manipulation. I witnessed this truth with a priestess who rejected her ambition as unspiritual, only to undermine every spiritual leader she encountered. Her disowned ambition emerged as criticism rather than creation. When she finally acknowledged her rightful desire for leadership, her criticism transformed into genuine service. Integration of the shadow is not about acting on every impulse, but about acknowledging these aspects within, understanding their origins, and finding conscious constructive channels for their expression. The journey toward shadow integration follows a predictable path. First comes awareness, noticing your projections, triggers, and patterns. Next comes acknowledgement, admitting that what you see in others also exists within you. Then comes compassionate understanding, recognizing that these disowned parts were created for protection. Finally comes integration, finding healthy expression for these aspects of yourself. This integration is not merely psychological, but profoundly spiritual work. The mystics of many traditions spoke of this process using different language. Christians call it embracing the entirety of the human condition, as Christ did. Buddhists might describe it as extending compassion to all aspects of oneself. Sufis speak of polishing the mirror of the heart to reflect the divine more clearly. I witnessed a desert hermit who had rejected all worldly pleasure as spiritually impure. His asceticism became rigid, judgmental, and ultimately devoid of compassion. His breakthrough came through acknowledging his disowned capacity for joy. In reclaiming this, his spiritual practice transformed from harsh denial to encompassing love. The work of shadow integration is neither quick nor easy. It requires courage to face what you have denied, compassion for the younger self who needed to create these protections, and discernment about how to express these reclaimed aspects appropriately. Practical pathways to this work include dream analysis, where the shadow often appears as figures that disturb or fascinate you. Journal dialogues with triggering emotions can reveal the disowned parts speaking through them. Creative expression through art, movement, or voice can bypass the conscious mind's resistance. Working with a skilled therapist or spiritual director provides witnessing and guidance for this challenging terrain. I guided a merchant who discovered through his dreams that he deeply resented the customers he consciously viewed as his lifeblood. This acknowledgement allowed him to set healthier boundaries that paradoxically improved his business relationships. What we conceal from ourselves controls us. What we acknowledge, we can choose to express appropriately. There are particular challenges in shadow work that deserve special attention. The first is spiritual bypassing, using spiritual practices to avoid facing psychological material. Many seek transcendence while their disowned aspects continue to operate unconsciously, often in destructive ways. The second is the collective shadow, the disowned aspects of groups, cultures, and nations that project their denied qualities onto others, often with devastating consequences. The dynamics observable in individuals operate at much larger scales, leading to dehumanization, oppression, and conflict. I observed this pattern with two neighboring kingdoms who projected their disowned qualities onto each other for generations. The logical discipline, culture denied its emotional nature while condemning the chaotic, expressive neighbor who had suppressed its capacity for order. Their eventual reconciliation began when wise leaders acknowledged what each culture had denied in itself while demonizing in the other. Working with your shadow is a lifelong journey, not a destination. As you integrate one layer, deeper aspects may emerge. This is not failure, but growth. Each layer integrated brings greater wholeness, authenticity, and access to your full potential. There is a paradox in shadow work. What you most fear to discover within yourself often becomes a source of liberation when acknowledged. The rage you fear might destroy relationships when consciously owned becomes healthy boundaries and passion for justice. The vulnerability you believe would leave you defenseless when embraced becomes the foundation for genuine intimacy. I counseled a warrior who feared his gentleness would make him weak in battle. When he integrated this disowned quality, he discovered that compassion made him more effective, able to inspire loyalty through respect rather than fear, capable of finding solutions beyond mere violence, aware of when mercy served better than retribution. The greatest challenge in shadow work may be the shame that guards these disowned aspects. Shame tells us not only that we have done something wrong, but that we have fundamentally wrong or defective. This toxic emotion keeps the shadow firmly in place, preventing integration. Moving beyond shame requires profound self-compassion, understanding that you developed these patterns for survival, that you did the best you could with the resources you had at the time. That wholeness includes all aspects of your humanity. I sat with a healer who carried deep shame about her anger, having been taught that those who heal must never feel rage. Her transformation began when she extended to herself the same compassion she offered her patients, recognizing that her anger carried important wisdom about boundaries violated and needs unmet. The ultimate promise of shadow work is not perfection but wholeness. Integration doesn't mean eliminating the darker aspects of your nature, but bringing them into the right relationship with your conscious values and intentions. A psyche that has embraced its shadow possesses remarkable qualities. Authenticity that doesn't hide behind masks, integrity based on knowing and owning all aspects of the self, creative power drawing from the full spectrum of human experience, and compassion extended to others because it has first been offered to the self. I witnessed a ruler transform through this work from behind the scenes manipulation to transparent leadership, acknowledging both his ambition and his service orientation. His kingdom flourished not because he became a different person, but because he became his whole self, using consciously what had previously operated in shadow. The journey of shadow integration is central to becoming fully human. It transforms not only personal life, but collective existence. Imagine a world where people own their projections rather than acting on them, where denial was replaced with awareness, where the energy wasted in suppression was channeled into creation. This vision is not utopian fantasy, but practical possibility, available through the courageous work of individuals willing to face what lies within. Each person who integrates their shadow contributes to the healing of our collective shadow, creating ripples that extend far beyond individual transformation. I have walked alongside countless souls on this journey across millennia. The pattern never changes. What is the most feared in the shadow becomes most treasured once integrated. What seems like descent into darkness becomes the path to greater light. What appears to be a journey away from divinity becomes the very route by which the sacred is most deeply encountered. Until we meet again in the oracle's chamber, remember, what you hide controls you. What you face transforms you. The path to the wholeness leads through the very aspects of yourself you most fear to face.